Every wall in the kingdom was built by someone. The gate mechanism, the alarm bells, the portcullis that drops when the outer guard calls it, the locks on the vault, the torches in the corridors that make it impossible to sneak through undetected. None of these existed before someone designed it, built it, and installed it. And when the castle holds, when the siege fails, when the attacker is turned back, nobody in the War Council is thinking about the person who built the walls. That invisibility is not a bug. It's the artificer's greatest success. Welcome back. I'm the architect. We've covered the paladin, the keeper of the law. Today, we meet the class that makes the law enforceable. The security engineer, the artificer, the builder. The one who turns design principles into deployed controls and policy into actual protection. Back to the domain map. The artificer's home is secure design principles. They are the person who makes build in, not bolt on, real. Not a principle on a slide. An actual architectural decision made at the right time. But their reach extends across the physical infrastructure of defense. System security is theirs, hardening servers, enforcing configuration standards, making sure that every system in the kingdom has its defaults replaced with something that wasn't designed for ease of setup. Network security lives here too. Firewalls, segmentation, IDS, IPS. The artificer doesn't just understand these tools conceptually. They configure them. They maintain them. They write the rules that govern what traffic is allowed and what is not. And identity and access management, the practical implementation of it anyway, falls to the artificer. Designing the access control architecture, building the systems that enforce least privilege, making sure the keys go to the right hands and only the right hands. The most important thing the artificer does happens before anything else. It happens in the design phase. Before the first line of code is written, before the first server is provisioned, before the first network diagram is drawn, the artificer is in the room asking the security questions that nobody else thought to ask. Where does this data flow? Who needs access to this system? What happens if this component fails? What's the blast radius if this gets compromised? Every security problem that gets caught in design costs a fraction of what it costs to fix after deployment, and a fraction of what it costs to fix after a breach. This is the principle we covered in episode 18, Secure Design, the domain that makes everything else cheaper. The artificer is the person who actually lives in that domain, every day, in every project meeting they can get themselves into. Here's the thing about defenses. They drift. A firewall rule gets added for a temporary project. The project ends, the rule stays. A server gets stood up with a default configuration. Nobody hardens it because it's internal and not that important. 6 months later, it's the pivot point in a lateral movement attack. A privileged account gets created for an integration. The integration is deprecated. The account stays active. Nobody notices for 18 months. The artificer fights configuration drift continuously. It's not glamorous work, but it's essential work. Because every piece of technical debt in a security architecture is a crack the rogue would find in a red team exercise, or an attacker could find for real. The artificer keeps the stones in place, not just when the castle is built, but every day after. Here's the hardest part of being an artificer. When they do their job perfectly, nothing happens. No breach, no alert, no incident that tests whether the walls hold. Just silence. In a business context, silence is hard to fund. The executive who asks, "What did security accomplish this quarter?" and hears, "Nothing happened," is not always equipped to recognize that as the answer that they were hoping for. The artificer's value is counterfactual. It exists in the attacks that didn't succeed, the breaches that didn't happen, the vulnerabilities that were designed out before they could be exploited. This is why the cleric, the security manager, matters so much, because the artificer needs someone who can translate. We built it right so nothing broke, into a language that secures the budget for the next quarter. We'll get to the cleric later. The artificer is downstream of the paladin and generally upstream of everyone else. The paladin writes the policy, the artificer implements it. The wizard identifies a detection gap, the artificer builds the rule that closes it. The rogue finds a vulnerability in the architecture, the artificer redesigns the architecture. The cleric says that the priority this quarter is hardening the identity infrastructure, the artificer does the hardening. Everything the party defends with, the artificer built. Every tool that fires when the wizard spots something, the artificer configured. And every time the castle holds, every time the attacker gets turned back, the artificer's name isn't in the post-incident report, because the post-incident report is for things that failed. The artificer's work is the reason some things don't. The core lesson. The artificer's best work is invisible. You never see it in the headlines. You see it in the absence of headlines. Security engineering is not reactive. It is the discipline that makes reaction less necessary. Build it right, harden it continuously, fix the flaw before the rogue finds it in a red team, and before someone else finds it for real. The castle was always built by someone. Make sure that someone was thinking about defense from the first stone. Your quest objective. Look at one device you use every day. Your laptop, your phone, your home router. Is it running the latest software? Are default credentials still in place? Is there anything installed on it you don't recognize or don't use? That is a personal security engineering audit. 30 minutes. The artificer runs this kind of assessment on enterprise systems at scale. But the discipline starts with the single device in front of you. Find one thing to harden. Harden it today. Wait. I really didn't think about that when I wrote. Oh, hell, I'm just going to leave it in. The artificer builds what the party fights with. But there is one class that determines whether the party fights together or fights in 5 different directions at once. The cleric. The security manager. The one who keeps every other class alive, resourced, and pointed at the same enemy. I'm the architect. We'll talk soon.